If you often sit in silence but your mind refuses to stay still, then listen carefully because what you are about to hear may reveal something uncomfortable about you. Most people believe their problem is lack of talent, lack of time, or lack of opportunity. But the truth is far more unsettling. The real reason many lives never change is because the mind is never trained to stay. It keeps running, chasing, reacting until even the simplest moment becomes impossible to hold. And here is the warning. If you cannot stay with one thought, one task, one moment, you are slowly losing control of your own life without even realizing it. This story might change everything, not because it gives you a trick or a shortcut, but because it reveals a truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding, a life lesson you'll never forget, if you are willing to truly see it. And as you listen, you will not only discover a powerful insight about focus and presence, but you will also learn new English words and sentence patterns naturally, effortlessly through the flow of this story. So don't rush. Don't let your attention drift like it always does. Because the moment you stop paying attention is the moment you miss the lesson that could have changed everything. This is the story of a young man who wanted to master the world, but first had to learn how to master a single moment. One day before the sun had fully risen above the mountains, a young man stood at the edge of a quiet monastery, his breath slightly uneven, his fingers restless as they tightened around a bundle of books he had carried for miles. Every day, before this moment, his life had followed the same pattern, starting something new, chasing another idea, abandoning it halfway, and then moving on again, convinced that the next thing would finally give him clarity. But it never did. His mind was always somewhere else, thinking about what to learn next, what to achieve next, what to fix next. Even when he sat down to study, his thoughts would drift within minutes. Even when he tried to rest, his mind refused to slow down. It was as if he was living everywhere, except the moment he was in. That morning, he believed this place would be different. The monastery stood in complete stillness. No noise, no rush, just the faint sound of wind brushing against the trees and the distant echo of water moving gently over stone. It felt like a world untouched by distraction. As he stepped inside, he noticed something unusual. An old master sat quietly in the courtyard holding a small object in his hands. His movements were slow, almost invisible, yet completely precise. He was not in a hurry. He was not looking around. He was simply there, fully present in a way the young man had never experienced before. The young man approached him quickly, words already forming in his mind, thoughts racing ahead as always. He did not realize that this moment, simple as it seemed, was about to confront him with the one thing he had been avoiding his entire life. The young man's name was Kaito. He was known among his peers as brilliant but restless. He could understand complex ideas, quickly memorize long passages, and speak with confidence about many subjects. But there was one thing he could never do: stay. Every day, he would begin with excitement, opening a book, starting a new practice, setting a new goal. But within minutes, his attention would slip. A sound outside, a random thought, a memory, a worry about the future. Anything was enough to pull him away. And so his days became a cycle. Starting, stopping, switching, repeating. He believed he was learning, but in truth, nothing was ever completed. When Kaito stood before the old master that morning, he spoke quickly, almost as if afraid his own thoughts would interrupt him. "I want to master knowledge," he said. "I want to understand everything." The master looked at him quietly, saying nothing for a moment. Then, without any explanation, he handed Kaito a small candle and pointed toward a dark stone room. "Go inside," he said softly. "Watch the flame." Kaito frowned. That was it. No teachings, no instructions, no wisdom. Just a candle. Still, he said nothing. He walked into the room, lit the candle, and sat down in front of it. The flame flickered gently, casting soft shadows on the wall. At first he watched carefully. Seconds passed, then minutes. And slowly, his mind began to move. He thought about how pointless this was. He wondered what real lessons he was missing outside. He noticed a crack in the wall, then another. A faint sound in the distance caught his attention, and without thinking, he turned his head. When he looked back at the flame, his focus was gone. He sighed, frustrated, stood up, and began pacing the room. The silence felt heavy now, almost unbearable. Time moved painfully slow. But then something strange happened. The more he tried to force himself to focus, the worse it became. His thoughts grew louder, faster, more chaotic. It felt like his own mind was slipping further out of his control. By the second day, his patience was gone. "This is useless," he said as he stepped out of the room. "I came here to learn something important." The master looked at him calmly. "A man who cannot watch a flame," he said slowly, "cannot watch his own life." The words landed deeper than Kaito expected. For the first time, he said nothing. That night, something unsettled him. Was it possible that the problem was not the task, but his mind? The next morning, before anyone else had awakened, Kaito returned to the room. But this time, something was different. He left everything behind. No books, no expectations, no rushing thoughts about what should happen next. He sat down, lit the candle, and watched. His mind still wandered, but now he noticed it. And gently, he brought it back. Again, and again, and again. If you see your own life in this moment, if you've ever felt like you're always busy, always thinking, but never truly present, comment 1 below, because what Kaito was about to discover next would change everything he thought he knew about focus and about himself. Days passed, then weeks. At first, nothing seemed to change. Kaito still sat in the same small room in front of the same quiet flame. His thoughts still came memories, worries, random ideas, pulling him away without warning. But something inside him was slowly shifting. He no longer fought his thoughts. He no longer became frustrated when his focus drifted. Instead, each time his mind wandered, he simply noticed it and gently returned to the flame. Again, and again, and again. The movement was small, almost invisible. But over time, it began to transform him. His breathing slowed. His body relaxed. The restless energy that once filled him began to settle into something calm, something steady. For the first time in his life, Kaito was not chasing the next thing. He was staying. One afternoon, as the sun leaned low over the monastery, a man rushed into the courtyard carrying a tangled bundle of fine threads and small glass beads. His face was tense, his movements hurried. "It's ruined," he said. "The more I try to fix it, the worse it becomes." The threads were pulled tightly in every direction, forming a complex knot that looked impossible to undo. Kaito stepped forward. He didn't rush. He didn't touch the threads immediately. Instead, he sat down beside them, and he watched. His eyes moved slowly, following each line, each crossing point, each place where the tension had built. Minutes passed, then longer. The man grew impatient. "Do something," he insisted. But Kaito remained still, because for the first time, he could see clearly. Then, without hesitation, he reached into the center of the knot. One gentle movement, one precise pull, and suddenly, everything loosened. The threads fell apart effortlessly. The beads settled into place. The man stood in silence, unable to understand what had just happened. That evening, as the sky faded into darkness, the master approached Kaito. "You see it now?" he said quietly. Kaito nodded. "Focus is not something you force," the master continued. "It is something you return to again and again." Kaito looked down at his hands, calm and still. "When you first came here, your mind was like those threads," the master said. "Pulled in every direction. Tight, confused. A soft silence followed. But you stopped chasing every thought. You stopped reacting to every distraction." Kaito took a slow breath. "You learned to stay. And in that moment, nothing felt missing anymore." This story teaches us a powerful truth. The candle was never just a candle. The tangled threads were never just threads. And Kaito's struggle was never just his own. The candle is your attention. The threads are your thoughts pulling, tightening, crossing over each other until everything feels overwhelming. And Kaito is you. In our lives, we often believe that we need more knowledge, more tools, more motivation. But the real problem is rarely what we lack. It is what we cannot hold. We cannot stay with one conversation without checking our phones. We cannot stay with one goal without doubting it. We cannot stay with one moment without escaping it. And slowly, without realizing it, we lose control, not because life is too hard, but because our minds are too scattered. Life is exactly like this. The more you pull at everything at once, the tighter it becomes. The more you chase every thought, every distraction, every impulse, the further you move away from clarity. But the moment you learn to pause, the moment you learn to return, again and again and again, everything begins to loosen. Not because the world changes, but because you do. Remember, focus is not something you have, it is something you practice. Presence is not a gift, it is a discipline. And every single time you bring your mind back to what truly matters, you are quietly, powerfully taking your life back. Now tell me honestly, how often does your mind pull you away from what matters most? Type focus in the comments if you are ready to take control of your attention. And if this story touched something inside you, share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Because sometimes the smallest lesson can create the biggest change. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story that might change the way you see your life forever.